I was in middle school when the world first stopped feeling like a playground and started feeling like a place where you are constantly being watched. It was a Tuesday, the kind of aggressive, humid afternoon where the air feels like a wet blanket, and I had stayed late for a drama club rehearsal. My school was situated in a transitional part of the city, half-renovated lofts, half-crumbling warehouses, and usually, my dad picked me up at the curb. That day, however, his car had blown a gasket, and he told me to take the city bus. I remember standing at the stop, clutching the straps of my backpack so hard my knuckles turned white. I was 13, gangly, and acutely aware that my oversized hoodie didn't make me look tough. It just made me look like a small person hiding. When the bus finally squealed to a halt, I climbed the steps and sat near the back, hoping to disappear into the cracked vinyl seat. The man got on 3 stops later. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like someone's tired uncle, wearing a beige windbreaker that was a little too large and carrying a plastic grocery bag that rattled with the sound of clinking glass. He sat directly across the aisle from me, despite the bus being nearly empty. At first, I stared out the window, watching the blur of gray storefronts, but I could feel his eyes. They weren't just glancing, they were heavy. "You go to the academy?" he asked. His voice was sandpaper, dry and grating. I nodded once, not looking at him. I tried to remember the stranger danger assemblies from elementary school, but they all seemed geared toward people offering you candy from a van. Nobody told me what to do when a man sat 3 feet away from you on public transit and started reciting your life back to you. "I see you there," he continued, leaning slightly into the aisle. "You usually wait by the silver SUV. Where's the silver SUV today, buddy? Did it break down? Is that why you're out here with the rest of us?" A cold prickle of sweat broke out along my hairline. He had been watching my school. He knew my father's car. I felt a sudden, frantic urge to vanish, but I was trapped in a moving metal box. I muttered something about my dad being right around the corner, a pathetic lie that felt paper thin as soon as it left my mouth. The man chuckled, a wet, rattling sound. He reached into his plastic bag and pulled out a heavy glass bottle of soda, but he didn't open it. He just gripped it by the neck like a club. "You shouldn't lie to people who are looking out for you," he said. His tone had shifted from conversational to predatory. "It's a long walk from the next stop to your neighborhood. Lots of alleys. Lots of places where a kid could trip and get hurt." My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I realized then that he wasn't planning on kidnapping me in broad daylight. He was waiting for me to get off. He was marking me. When the bell rang for the next stop, my stop, I stayed frozen. He stood up slowly, the glass bottles in his bag clinking like a funeral march. He didn't move toward the door. He just stood in the aisle, blocking my path, staring at me with a flat, vacant intensity that suggested he wasn't seeing a person, but an opportunity. "This is you," he said softly. The bus driver, an older woman with headphones in one ear, called out the stop over the intercom. I looked at her in the rearview mirror, but she wasn't looking at me. The doors hissed open. The man stepped off, but he didn't walk away. He stood on the sidewalk, right under the street lamp, and looked back into the bus, waiting. He knew I had to get off eventually. In a moment of pure, panicked instinct, I didn't get up. I waited until the doors began to groan shut, and as the bus pulled away, I saw him start to jog alongside the window, his face contorted into a mask of pure, focused rage. He wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. I rode that bus to the very end of the line, miles away from my home, shaking so hard I couldn't speak when the driver finally asked me why I was still there. I never saw him again, but for years, he hadn't touched me. But he had taken the safety of my world and shattered it, leaving me with the permanent knowledge that sometimes the person watching you isn't waiting for you to get home. They're waiting for you to be alone.